I fired my son. It was one of the hardest decisions I ever made. And it ended up being one of the most important business decisions I ever made. And I'm going to live in the truth. I like to come up here with you guys and live in the truth. I delayed that decision so very long. So I'm going to take you through a journey of failure. I'm going to take you through a journey of revival. And I'm going to take you through a journey, if you'll come with me, on how that ended with success. We come up here year in, year out, and we get to tell these success stories, and there's so many of them. There's so many great, individuals and leaders in this industry, and these stories and the success is just, it's vibrant and we attract to it. But every day we're all struggling with something, and we need help to get through it. And I want to share with you the difference between discipline and development. This wasn't a discipline issue. I didn't fire my son because of a discipline issue. I fired my son, and it was a leadership issue. He wasn't failing. He was in the acquisition center. He was putting up numbers that are unheard of in our industry. The month before I fired him, we bought 225 cars off the street. Massive numbers. The problem in automotive is we're measured in these 30-day cycles. It's a gift and it's a curse. You're only as good as those last 30 days, or you're only as good as the next 30 days, and we get stuck. And we get stuck and we make these decisions every day because we answer to owners, or we're answering to the OEM, or we're answering to managers, and everybody's just trying to win in these 30 days. And what happened was he was taking advantage of me, his dad. He was operating outside the standards within the company. Again, high performer. Everything he was buying was making us money, and everything he was touching was turning to gold. But he was coming and going as he pleased. He was missing meetings. He was coming with attitude. This is just a couple of years ago. He was using his performance to cover his lack of respect. His numbers are great. But inside those great numbers, my standards became silent. What did that say for my organization? See, the hardest leadership scenario that many of you probably are dealing with right now is the difference between high performers, but they have low accountability. You're probably saying the same thing I was. He's producing. We need him. What happens if we lose him? It's not that bad. The problem was the entire dealership, each department, wasn't looking at his numbers. They didn't care about his numbers. I did. They were watching what I was allowing. And I started to watch it filter into the organization. And it started to shift things. Performance began to outrank standards simply just because I allowed it. So I want to go back a little bit and just talk to you about my son. His mom and I were high school sweethearts. We were together from the time we were 16 till we were 22. And we had Jaden when we were 21. And I was in the car business. I was 21 years old. I was a GSM of a dealership. I was thriving in business. And you know, when you're 21 and you have a child, first thing you do is say, what? I got to get my butt to where I was working. I was the first guy at the store. I was the last guy to leave. I was working 7 days a week. I had a 1-year-old. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't come from money. I was not financially secure yet. I was scared, so I was working. we were young and we had this child, and I made a commitment that I was never going to leave my son out. He was never going to miss anything. I was never not going to provide for him. He was going to get everything from me. And I made a commitment. And that commitment didn't align with his mom wanted, and we separated at 22. And then I doubled down on my commitment to Jaden. And that double down in the commitment was he was gonna be my best friend, and I was gonna take him through life. And man, we did. I gotta tell you, I spent years making sure that the business and my relationship with him didn't intertwine, that he was going to be my best friend. And gosh, I did it. I did it until these moments that I'm talking to you about. See, leadership's a choice. And I started to protect him. And it started to filter into business. And I'm telling you this story very simply because this has nothing, the things that you're going through in your dealership actually they're not the same problem, but it's the same problem because these high performers with low accountability, we all have it. And it's such a disruption. Growth requires truth. See, Jaden leaving us was super painful. Our numbers, they felt it. They felt it. We started going backwards in used cars because of his acquisition strategy. He was, at that point, he was 20 years old, buying at a super high level. And we both took it hard. My son went 3 months and didn't talk to me. And then he was going to show me, because I terminated his employment with the company because of the damage that our relationship was doing. And here's what's crazy. He went to another dealership, and guess what he went to do? He went and sold cars at a local competitor, and guess what he was? The top performer. And he was there. He was the top performer, and then he left that dealership. He left that dealership, and then he went to another dealership. And he started to gain clarity. And I started to gain accountability back with our team. See, the truth was I wasn't protecting him. I was actually protecting myself. I was protecting my comfort with staying in control and that relationship I had with him, and I was calling it love. I want to go back to your dealership because every store has a version of what I went through. You have a salesperson that everyone works around. You guys know what I'm talking about? The one that he's such a high performer, nobody wants to talk to him. The manager that everybody hopes is going to get better one day. The high performer who doesn't respect the standards in your company is more damaging than the low performer who's trying to grow. Accountable versus able. This is a takeaway I want you to hear from me. There is a difference between accountability and holding somebody able. See, accountability is all about the results. It focuses on the outcome. It's this responsibility of the result. And the problem with that is before you could ever hold somebody accountable, you got to hold them able. And what that means is you are responsible for equipping them, empowering them, and developing them the ability to succeed. Holding somebody, you can't hold them accountable until you hold them able. Do they have all the tools? Did you give them all the training? Unfortunately, leaders jump straight to accountability first, whatever ensuring that these people are able to do their jobs. See, accountability without development is not leadership. Accountability without development is just disappointment with a deadline. This person is going to fail. It's disappointment with a deadline. It's just a matter of when.
Have to do to keep people forever. Everybody knows number one is pay you fair. We must pay you fair for the job that you do, right? Number two is treat you with respect. And number three is give you opportunity for growth. Those are the three things that you can expect from this company in 2026. there's not much more growth that can happen based on our capacity. Where we can grow is how we make our customers feel and how we make our employees feel. I'm so dialed into the fact that I know happy people make happy people. So our mission, Austin and I's goals for 2026 is to make this the greatest job you've ever had.
That was a video from our Christmas party this year. I decided, well, let me say, October of 2025. Hopefully, many of you do what I do. I get with my manufacturer and I ask them for their rundown for next year. And I start building a forecast. And then I say, how many used cars am I going to sell? And I build this forecast for 2026. And I look at how many ROs are we going to service. And like last year, 2025, was an incredible year. It was our best net profit year the company's ever had. Our volume was way up. We were crushing it. I'm sitting there in a manufacturer's meeting in October and November, and guess what they tell me? We're not getting you any more cars. What you see is what you get. You're not going to get any more cars in 2025 than you got in 2026 than you got in 2025. So, I mean, our store's only been open 8 years. Like, we need to grow. How am I going to grow? Well, okay. So I said to myself, and I started building the forecast plan, and if I'm not going to have the cars, how am I going to increase volume? Okay, well, I'm doing 5,000 customer pay ROs every single month right now on 38 service bays. How am I going to grow? There was no plan, no outline to grow. It wasn't there. I couldn't see it. So I got in this Christmas party. We have 330 employees. I sit in front of the Christmas party. I get in front of all of them, and I start talking about 2026. This is my moment. I have the spouses there. We can talk about the year. And I said, well, what am I going to get up there? Hey, guys, next year we're going to suck. Don't worry, we're not growing. Is that what people want to hear? Nobody wants to hear that. So I shifted my thinking for 2026, and I said, okay, if we can't grow in volume, what do most dealers do? They start cutting expense. Okay, Liza, we got to grow, right? So we got to grow net profit. Like, we can't go backwards. Nobody's in a plan to go backwards. So it's like, do we cut expenses? I don't cut expenses. I shifted. And I said, well, if I can't grow new car sales and used car sales and service sales, I don't have capacity. I'm going to shift to investing in people and in leadership. And I'm taking some of these lessons that I learned through this thing with my son, and I said, okay, I'm going to start laying into people. And for 2026, what we started to do was not focus on performance and just invest in these people. And I told him, I sat in that meeting and I said, I'm going to make this the greatest year you ever had. And you might not make another dollar, but you will be smarter, you will be better. That's what we're going to invest in. And I did. I invested in a leadership coach that we have. I doubled down on our leadership coach. We have a leadership coach for all 330 employees, all right, who's teaching every employee DISC, because I believe in that. And how you communicate is a really important piece of how you operate a car dealership. All right, we invested in different training programs. Gosh. The people side. And you know what's so funny is I get up here on stage all the time and people talk about our culture and this and that. And I didn't realize that some of the gaps we have because we celebrate some success. Here's what's crazy. When I made the commitment to make this the greatest year our people ever had, can I tell you we're up 20% in volume? Can I tell you that we're up, sales is up 20% in volume, new car sales. Used car sales is up 20%. RRO count is up 20%. My collision center is up 25%. My parts department is up 30%. My net profit year over year is up 30%. The net profits that I'm making since I decided to put an investment into the people is making COVID look like a cupcake time. And that's insane. Intentional development with our people. So we stopped guessing on our people. So we started investing in this, right? We invested in leadership coaches. So we made development daily. our meetings changed. After that Christmas party, we said, what are we going to do? So we ended up going and looking at our meetings and investing in people. So those 15-minute service huddles, do you know how important they are? This isn't about, every moment that we meet with our people is an opportunity to make them better. And if your salespeople are leaving meetings and they're not writing things down, I said this last night, if salespeople are leaving meetings and they're not writing things down, you're not teaching them anything. When you commit to developing people and truly make it a passion, you don't have to worry about the numbers. So I want to take it back full circle. April 1st, I rehired my son. He was gone for 2 years. And I want to talk about that journey because I told you he went to these other stores. He started to see what the car business was like outside our circle. He learned some things, but more importantly, he started to appreciate us. But I'll tell you, when it talks about leadership and development, something special happened. He was gone for about 6 months, and I got a phone call from Danny. Danny is one of the founders of VinQ. He said to me, hey, I would like to hire your son. We were a VinQ dealer. He's a high performer. And Danny and I have a wonderful relationship, and I shared with Danny some of the struggles I had with Jaden. And you know what he told me? He told me the same thing I told y'all on stage last year. I got you. And he picked up my kid and he gave him a job at VinQ, which ended up being more than just a job. He gave him development that I could not give him in the dealership. And he took him on this journey and he handed me back my child much better than I handed him to him. He has a maturity in that level now that if I continued down the path I was on, it was going to be damaging forever. And I tell you this because, again, I go back to everybody has this problem in their dealership. There's somebody right now that you need to make a decision on. And if I never made that decision, my child would not be back with me today. And in the end and truly at the end of the day, that is leadership. Making those really hard decisions that you know are best for the organization, that you know are best. See, it just happened to tie personally to me. That makes it 10 times harder. What decision right now do you need to make in your dealership that's going to be good for the future of the organization? Why are you waiting? See, the son who came back to me is not the son I fired, and I'm not the father that fired him. See, him leaving the company gave him clarity. Him leaving the company gave me accountability. What I thought I was doing when I fired him was making a hard decision. What I actually was doing was truly leading the company. And it was at that moment when I made that decision that the entire company got better. The question is not whether you know what needs to be done. The question is, how long are you willing to wait to do it? I fired my son, and the day I did, I became a leader for my team, the one they deserve, the one I told them I was going to be. I fired my son. What are you willing to do for your people? That's all I got. Thank you.